Hello, this is going to be a review on proteins and the cell membrane and their role in cell transport. So here we have a lot going on, so let me explain. So we have the inside of the cell is at the bottom and the outside of the cell is at the top. So I'll write inside and I'll write outside right here. Okay, inside and outside. Okay. All right, that looks good. So then we have the cell membrane, and that's labeled here. And the cell membrane, remember, that's made of phospholipids, and together we have phospholipids, and the tails are facing each other with then the hydrophilic heads facing outward. Okay, and together that's actually going to create what we call the phospholipid bilayer. It's two layers of lipids. And so inside you have the hydrophobic heads. Hydrophobic, they're scared of water, which is why they're towards the inside. On the outside you have the hydrophilic heads. And remember, your bodies and cells are made out of about 80% water. So there's water on the inside and outside of the cell. And so these hydrophilic heads are always interacting with water. Okay, so you have molecules of different size. You have small ones, medium-sized ones, and very large ones. And these molecules pass through the cell membrane. Well, let's talk about how they pass through. So certain things like oxygen and water, they are going to pass right through the cell membrane. And in fact, they're so small that they can go right through these phospholipids. Okay, and so that's actually that's diffusion across the cell membrane. That's diffusion. So oxygen is delivered by your hemoglobin close to cells. And then from there, the oxygen, all it does is by nature, it just goes from an area of high concentration to low concentration. It does that without any energy at all. And that's how your cells get oxygen. It just diffuses freely through the cell membrane. Now, you might have bigger molecules like lipids or proteins or carbohydrates. Now, those might be things that your cell needs. So if one of these molecules here, if they try to go through here, they're too big. They can't fit in between those phospholipids. If one of them collided with the cell membrane, it would just bounce right off. So what they have is cell membranes have channel proteins. And just like a train goes through a mountain using a tunnel, right? These channel proteins are going to have little tunnels, or what we can call channels. And so if we have a high concentration, these particles can go right through the channel protein. Some of my students call these hot dog proteins because they kind of look like hot dogs. Whatever helps you remember it. Now, so these proteins give these molecules the space they need to actually go through the membrane and into the cell. Okay, next we have carrier proteins. So we have really big molecules that can't even fit through this channel or the tunnel. So what's going to happen here is that you have a carrier protein, and if we have a high concentration outside the cell, naturally they're going to want to go inside the cell where there's a lower concentration. However, now you use carrier proteins. And a carrier protein, it will initially be open on the outside. So then the big molecule will come in, bind with it, and then it'll close on the top but open on the bottom, letting the big molecule inside. Okay? So all of this is just simple diffusion. Now, if I were to say, okay, well now actually some of these little molecules are water as well. So if those are water molecules and they go into the cell, well, now that's just called osmosis, okay, because water is very special. However, with using channel proteins, and if it goes from a high to a low concentration, it still doesn't require energy, but now we call that facilitated diffusion. So these two examples are called facilitated diffusion. Okay? All right. Now, our last example. So if we have, where's my green marker? If we have these particles here, okay, we have a high concentration. on the outside of the cell. But say this is a particle, maybe it's a waste particle, so the cell needs to get rid of it. Well, what's going to happen is the cell is not going to allow these particles to go in because it needs to get rid of them. So these particles won't be let in through this protein or the cell membrane. They can't get in. Well, then what's going to happen is that your cell is going to use energy. Wow, that does not look good. I apologize. Energy. Your cell is going to use energy to actually pump these molecules against their concentration gradient. This is active transport, when energy is used and the molecules are actually pumped against their concentration gradient. So it's actually going from a low concentration to a high concentration, when normally it goes the opposite. So active transport kind of goes against everything we've learned so far. But it's very important for the cell to be able to get things into or out of the cell against the concentration gradient. I hope this helps. Thank you.